Hello and welcome to All About Cars with CarWale, and we've got two things going for you towards the end of the video, so do watch till the end. We'll make an announcement, a small announcement, nothing very significant, and two, we'll give you a driving tip, a basic driving tip, but that's going to be helpful. Now, let's get straight into the questions. Let's take questions off Instagram first, and we've got Sajid who wants to know which is the best SUV for rupees 16 lakhs, and that's quite straightforward. I think you should go for the Creta. You can get the SX Petrol for that sort of money, and it's well spec'd, it's a spacious car, it's a well-built car. We spent a significant amount of time with the car, and that's a good option to go for. Next up, we've got Lokesh, and Lokesh wants to know which is a better buy, the Ford Endeavour or the MG Gloster. Now, the MG Gloster is of course the better spec of the two SUVs. It's got more space, so in that sense you get more value for your money. But I would pick the Endeavour because I like my cars, even if they are SUVs, old school body on ladder SUVs, I like my cars, SUVs, to have a little more on-road dynamics, and the Endeavour is definitely a better riding, better driving car than the Gloster. So that's the difference between the two. I would go for the Endeavour, but you need to decide what's more important, space and features or on-road dynamics. So that's the choice you need to make. And now let's take questions off Facebook. And first up, we've got Jayanta. Jayanta wants to know which is a better buy, the Innova Crysta or the MG Hector. He says that it will essentially be used for city travel, 50 kilometers. Now, the Crysta is a more hardy car in that sense. It's great if you are going to do long distances when you don't know what the road ahead's going to be like, bad road or things like that, and if you want to move around with 6 to 7 people. And I mean, the Innova really has no equal. It's a little pricey, but it has no equal, so that's the one. But since you're going to be driving essentially in the city, then you want something that's lighter on your, it has lighter controls, it is easier to live with, and that's what the Hector is. Hector rides better at slower speeds. It's a softly sprung car. So between the two, for city use, I think we'd say the Hector, and the Innova, of course, if you want something to go explore India. Mateen Khan says that is actually asking if there is a 7-8 seater EV on cards. So the thing is that EV right now in our market and in general, I think is targeted at city use, and there you're looking at smaller cars, maybe 5-seater SUVs, not too big, not too heavy, because you want that sort of range. So no, there is nothing in the 6 to 7-seater segment that's going to come to India in the EV space this year or next. EV space in any case is taking baby steps in terms of new car launches. So no, we don't expect anything this year for sure. Rajesh is asking us if the Triber, the Renault Triber, will get a 1-liter turbo engine. Now, the 1-liter turbo we know will come on the Kaiga, the Renault Kaiga, the sub 4-meter SUV 5-seater, which is based on the same platform as the Triber. That's going to get that 1-liter turbo, and we think the Triber will get it too. Triber will be, it would find, or it will make more sense in the Triber in our opinion, because it's supposed to carry more than 5 people, and that turbo engine would work really well. So yes, the Triber should get it. We're not sure when, but this year, most likely. Suraj has asked us, sir, मैं XUV300 W8 या Nexon XZ Plus दोनों में से कौन सी लूँ? Nexon का मुझे सस्पेंशन सेटअप पसंद है, ग्राउंड क्लियरेंस पसंद है, उसका म्यूज़िक सिस्टम सूरज को पसंद है, और बस ये है कि उसने सुना है कि Nexon में इंजन के कुछ इश्यूज आ जाते हैं 10,000 किलोमीटर के आसपास, और XUV भी पसंद है सूरज को। XUV की चीज़ें पावरफुल इंजन है, रिफाइंड है, और जो चीज़ें नहीं पसंद है उसमें डेड पेडल नहीं है और एक छोटा सा बूट है। सो पूछ रहे हैं सूरज, आप अगर दोनों में से कौन सा लेना चाहें, उसमें आपने ये कह दिया कि आपको आपकी प्रायोरिटी इंजन है, गुड ग्राउंड क्लियरेंस है और अच्छी राइड क्वालिटी है। सो इन तीनों एस्पेक्ट्स में मैं कहूँगा नेक्सॉन बेटर फिट है, और जो आप कह रहे हो कि इंजन में इश्यूज आ जाते हैं 10,000 किलोमीटर के आसपास, तो ऐसा है कि कुछ इंस्टेंसेस हो सकते हैं पर इतनी अगर आप सोचें कि 3,000 गाड़ियाँ बिकती हैं हर महीने और वो इतने साल से बिक रही है नेक्सॉन, तो अगर बहुत बड़ा इशू होता तो अभी तक हर जगह ये प्लास्टर हो चुका होता और हम सबको पता होता। पर ये कुछ इंस्टेंसेस होंगे, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि नहीं है इंस्टेंसेस, पर प्रोबेबिलिटी उसकी बहुत कम है। तो मेरे हिसाब से तो फिर भी सेफ बेट है, और अगर कोई इश्यूज हैं भी और आते भी हैं तो आई एम श्योर टाटा मोटर्स उसको सॉल्व कर देगा। सो मेरे हिसाब से आपको नेक्सॉन के साथ चलना चाहिए। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम कार्तिक, एंड कार्तिक सेज दैट he's looking at a running of about 2,000 kilometers a month, and he wants to know whether he should go for a petrol or a diesel, and he wants to know what should he go for, the Creta, the Seltos or the Kushaq. So 2,000, you're just at that cusp where you could work with petrol also and diesel also. I think it'll finally depend on which one you like. Personally, I would go for the petrol, and between these three, I think the Creta is the more comfortable or the most comfortable option to go for. The Seltos is slightly sportier, and it has more palatable looks compared to the Creta. The Creta looks, they need to grow on you. So it is it's a trade-off, or it's between the Seltos and the Creta really, and I would say take the Creta because that's what I would choose. Next question from Shaukat, and Shaukat wants to know which is a better car to go for, the Skoda Rapid or the Hyundai Verna. He's looking at the Monte Carlo version for the Rapid and the SX version for the Verna. The Verna is of course cheaper, as you have clearly listed, and the Verna is a more upmarket, premium, feel-good car in comparison. So, and now with the latest Verna, I think they have taken out that wallowing issue it used to have, and so it is dynamically more able as well now. The Rapid, of course, is a nicer driving car in terms of ride and handling balance, but in terms of ownership experience, I think the Verna would be a better fit. Kumaran wants to buy the XUV300, and he wants to know, he's looking at the automatic version. He wants to know if there's any future plan to bring the DCT or a CVT or a torque converter. Right now, the XUV, of course, comes with an AMT. No, we don't think there would be any plans on the current platform, with the current engine and the current pricing, to bring in something more expensive, which is a DCT, a torque converter or a CVT. I think AMT is, they've done a good job with the XUV300 AMT. So chances are that there will be no demand really, or a big demand for them to incorporate or bring in any of the traditional or more refined automatics. So I think the XUV300 would continue to get an AMT. Shiv Kumar is confused between the Venue SX IMT and the Sonet GTX IMT. He wants to know which is the better car. Says there are no showrooms in Andaman. I think Andaman is where he stays. So what should he go for? Does Sonet have any sort of edge that he should try and get a Sonet instead of go for a Hyundai, which I believe should have a showroom or a retail outlet in Andaman. So I would say no, just go with whatever is available. So the difference between the Sonet and the Venue isn't as much for you to be able to say that I would take the extra effort and pains of getting in a car that doesn't have service or showroom backup where you stay. So of course the Sonet feels and looks slightly more premium than the Venue because I think it came in later. But the Venue's IMT I think is a great car to go for. You should absolutely go for it, and it would be the safer bet given that you have service and showroom backup in where you stay. And now let's take some questions off YouTube. And we've got Drum Mix Gaming, real name not given. And Dromix wants to know whether you should go for the i20 Asta Petrol 1.2 MT or the i20 Sports Diesel. Which is better? He's going to use, or she's going to use the car essentially in the city and for less than 900 kilometers. The kilometers and the city use would clearly indicate that you should go for the petrol. is the 1.2 is a older engine in the Hyundai lineup, but it's still bulletproof and very reliable, very usable, torquey engine. It's also refined. You also get that engine on the Venue, so there is nothing wrong with that engine. If you want something newer, you could look at the turbo version, but even the naturally aspirated 1.2 is a good option to go for. Petrol is what would suit your needs compared to the diesel. Saurabh says that he's got a Kia Seltos diesel and manual, and this is the first time that he's come across gear shift indicators. And he wants to know and he wants us to briefly explain the function of having gear shift indicators, and should he follow what the gear shift indicators tell him to the T, or can he use his personal judgment? So the idea behind having gear shift indicators is essentially to help people use or utilize the engine in the best way possible. Now you'll have some people who short shift or shift too early, so you're completely out of the healthy band, and chances are the car will have some sort of gear related knocking, which is like cut. And some people just forget about shifting at the right time, and they rev too much, and that of course ruins your living with the car experience, because your fuel efficiency goes for a 6, and it's just not the right way to go about it. So gear shift indicators tell you or give you an indicative idea about where to shift to best use the engine. Should you follow that or follow your personal thing? So I definitely always use my personal, what I feel is the right shift point. It completely depends. I mean, if I want to drive for fuel efficiency, I will follow what the car suggests. But if I want to drive, for naturally or what comes to me naturally, I would not look at that, because you can't constantly keep looking in front and looking. So when you're driving for fuel efficiency, you're more careful. In city traffic, maybe you can use it, but you can try both and see what works for you. Now, Arun has asked us if we have any idea as to when the Skoda Kushaq and the Volkswagen Taigun will be in their respective showrooms, and how much would the price be. He has plans to buy a petrol manual car, which is between 11 to 14 lakhs on the road, and he wants to buy a sedan or a C SUV, and he says, is there any other car that he could look at instead of the, let's say, the Volkswagen Taigun? So the Skoda will come first, followed by the Taigun, and there will be no diesel, so that's there. You'll have the 1 liter turbo petrol for the Taigun. You will have the 1.5 liter again TSI petrol on the Taigun, and the 1.5 will be an imported engine, so clearly that will be the more expensive version. You should see the Taigun come in, let's say, second quarter of this year. So that's where we're looking at, and you have options. Yes, you have better options, or not better, because we don't know what the Taigun is going to be like, but you have options to that class of car, which is your Kia Seltos and Hyundai Creta. So you can look at that if you're for your SUV thing, and if you want to look at sedans, then you've got the City. It's a great option to go for. So these are essentially your options. Pawan Sharma says that he shortlisted the Renault Duster 1.3 petrol manual, and he wants to know how is it in terms of performance, handling and maintenance. So that 1.3 petrol is a lovely engine, and the Duster, though as simple as it might be in terms of its underpinnings, it's a great car to drive. It's dynamically very good. At high speeds, the ride's quite planted. So in terms of performance, it's a big yes. In terms of handling, it's a big yes. Maintenance also, we haven't really, I mean, like I said, it's a simple car, simple underpinning, so it's also not going to be very expensive to for parts or overall maintenance for that car. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. And now, like we said at the start, we have a small announcement all about cars. We're just taking a little break. We will come back with this series, but we're just taking a small sabbatical of it. And but we will continue to answer your questions in our reviews. We will let you know on social and on the website, maybe even on YouTube, that we're going to review this car, and you can send in your questions and we'll try and answer that like an extension of All About Cars. But as a series, as an episode, we're just taking a short break from this. And now for the driving tip that I had promised right at the start. So it's a very simple thing. The most important thing when you start driving is the driving position. And you can split it into three things. You're looking at control, you're looking at visibility, and you're looking at reducing your injury in case you have a crash. And the first thing to do is, when you sit in a car, is if you've got height adjustable seat, for instance, is to adjust the height. Now, I like to sit really low, but a good indication would be to have a fist difference between the roof and your head. So just in case if you don't catch a bump and you're not going and you get pushed up, at least there is some place and you don't hit your head to the roof. Sitting high up will also mean that you have much better visibility of what's in front. So even in the city, you will be able to see better. So that's the first thing that you should adjust. The second thing you need to do is, if you have a manual, is to depress the clutch and ensure that your knee is bent, because if it's straight when you press the clutch, and when you get into, let's say, a difficult situation, the first thing you're going to do is go for the clutch, go for the brake, and if you get into an impact, whatever comes through will carry all the way through and up to your hip bone. You don't want that. If it's bent at the knee, then you'll have a break here, so of course it's still going to be very, very painful, but at least you will save your hip, etc. So it's always good to have a bend in the knee. Now this is, of course, for a manual. And then the third thing that you need to do is the distance from the steering, and that's where control comes in. Now, if you're completely stretched out, chances are, if you have to make an evasive maneuver, let's say a cat comes into your way, or let's say a cyclist comes out, so chances are, if you're completely straight, you won't be able to have complete or good leverage. But if your arms are slightly bent here, then you have more leverage, and so you can get a quicker, better response. Now, to do that, the best thing is to stretch your arm and keep this wrist on the steering, so that tells you the distance. And this, like I said, is for the manual. In case of an automatic, you will never ever be that far that your right leg is straight on the brake. So you should first adjust your distance, and then automatically your knee will be bent when you go for the brakes in an automatic. The other thing is, try and keep your seat as straight as possible. It will feel uncomfortable at the start if you're not used to it, but the thing is, it helps your back, it's less tiring, and again, since you're more straight up, it also gives you better control. So try that, do that. Every time you sit in your car, of course, if nobody else drives in the house, then of course you'll always have that sort of setting. But do that and you'd be surprised at how much control and comfort that comes into driving when you have the right seating position. And that's it from us this week, and we will see you in All About Cars sometime soon. So in the meantime, we'll have other videos coming up, so do subscribe and do hit the bell icon, and keep watching us. Thank you so much.